Picture this. You just finished an incredible TV series. The finale was perfect. The character arcs were complete. You felt emotionally satisfied in a way that only great storytelling can provide. So naturally, what do? You immediately hit restart, back to season 1, episode 1, baby. We running it back again. But realistically, here is a question that's kind of been bothering me lately. Should you? I've been thinking about this a lot recently because just how we consume shows now. We live in the age of binge watching where entire seasons drop at once and then we marathon through the shows like we're running a 5K or something. But more than that, we've kind of developed this culture of rewatching shows constantly, like religiously, like it's bad, with shows like The Office, Friends, even more serious cases of darker shows like Breaking Bad. People will just watch these shows over and over and over again. But what if I told you that some shows actually lose their power when you rewatch them? What if the very thing that made them great was designed to only be experienced once? Let's start with kind of what feels like a more obvious case, which is mystery shows and thrillers. Take something like True Detective Season 1, right? The first time you watch it, you're constantly trying to figure out who the Yellow King is, what the spiral symbol means, what Rust is really talking about with all his psychological rambling. The tension builds because you genuinely don't know what's coming next. Every conversation could contain a crucial clue. Every scene could be the one that reveals everything. But the second time around, you already know exactly who the killer is. You know about the cult, you know about the family connections, you know exactly where every twist is heading. Suddenly, all these cryptic conversations aren't really mysterious anymore. They're just exposition that you already understand. The carefully crafted tension evaporates because the unknown has become known. You already know what's happening. The show was designed around the experience of discovery, and once you've discovered everything, what's left? Or look at something like Lost. Say what you want about the ending of the show, but the first time it came out, Lost was unlike anything else anybody had seen on TV up to this point. The mysteries kept piling up, the theories kept getting more elaborate. Every episode ended with some, mind-bending cliffhanger that had you immediately queuing up the next one. The show worked because you were just as confused and desperate for answers as the characters were. You were experiencing that island right alongside with them. But watching Lost again, it's a completely different experience and not necessarily a better one. You know exactly which mysteries actually get resolved and which ones were just red herrings. You know which character development matters and which ones lead to nowhere. Instead of being swept up in the mystery, you're watching the writers fumble around trying to figure out their own show. The magic trick of it all stops working once you know exactly how it's done. Here's where it gets interesting though. Shows that rely on plot twists and reveals. The Sixth Sense was a great movie the first time you watched it, but how many times have you rewatched it since, learning that Bruce Willis was dead the entire time? Probably not many, because the entire film is constructed around that one reveal. Once you know the twist, you're not watching a supernatural thriller anymore. You're watching a very different, much sadder movie about a dead man who doesn't realize that he's dead. TV shows can also fall into this same trap. Westworld Season 1 was, again, amazing TV when you didn't know what the multiple timelines were, when you were trying to figure out what was real and what was simulation. But rewatching it, you realize how much of the experience was just the writers playing tricks with chronology. You strip away the mystery and you're left with a show that's often more confusing than clever. But then there are also shows that seem specifically designed to punish rewatching. Take something like 13 Reasons Why. And I know that this show is controversial for a lot of reasons, but hear me out. The entire premise is built around the mystery of why Hannah herself and who's responsible. The tapes are revealed one by one, each episode peeling back another layer of the tragedy. It's emotionally devastating, but it works because you're also discovering the truth alongside Clay. The problem is, once you know all 13 reasons, once you understand the full scope of what happened, rewatching becomes almost unbearable. Not because it's a bad show, but because it's too effective. You know exactly how much pain is coming, you know exactly which characters are gonna fail Hannah, and you know that no matter what, how much you want things to turn out differently, they won't. The show becomes an exercise in masochism, we'll say. And what about shows that are just too emotionally heavy to rewatch? I love The Leftovers. It's, again, a great show, but I have absolutely no desire to put myself through that again, because that show is just 3 full seasons of existential dread, grief, and people trying to cope with incomprehensible loss. It's beautiful, it's meaningful, it's important, but it's also emotionally taxing in a way that feels almost irresponsible to inflict on yourself repeatedly. Same with something like Requiem for a Dream or Grave of the Fireflies. These are incredible pieces of art that are designed to devastate you. They're supposed to be difficult to watch, and rewatching them just diminishes their impact because you're no longer being surprised by the tragedy. You are pretty much volunteering for it at that point. But here's where the argument gets complicated, right? Because there are shows that do seem to get better with rewatching. Take The Wire. The first time you watch it, you're trying to follow the complex plot lines, figure out who all the characters are, understand the Baltimore political landscape. But the second time, you start noticing things that you missed. You understand character motivations better, you catch references and connections that went over your head the first time. The Wire was designed with rewatching in mind. David Simon packed so much detail, so many layered conversations and subtle character work that it's almost impossible to catch absolutely everything in one viewing. The show rewards attention and study in a way that makes subsequent viewings of it feel like essential homework rather than mindless comfort viewing. Or look at something like Mad Men. The first time through, you're following Don Draper's journey, trying to understand who he really is beneath all the lies and performance. But rewatching Mad Men, you start to notice how carefully every costume choice, every set design, every background detail was crafted to reinforce the themes. You catch the historical references you missed, you understand the social commentary more deeply, you appreciate the writing in ways that only come with familiarity. And these shows work on multiple levels. There's the surface narrative that carries you through on first viewing, and then there are deeper layers of meaning and craftsmanship that only reveal themselves with time and attention. They are built like great novels designed to be studied as much as experienced. But then there are the comfort food shows. These are shows like The Office, Parks and Rec, Friends, Seinfeld. These shows aren't designed around any sort of mystery or great revelation. They're designed around character and consistency. Michael Scott is always going to be awkward. Leslie Knope is always going to be enthusiastic. Jerry is always going to be getting into some shenanigans. The pleasure in these shows isn't in discovering what happens next, it's in spending time with characters you love in situations that feel familiar. Just like you could probably map out everybody's apartment in Friends. These shows work more as background noise, as comfort when you're sick, as familiar friends when you need something reliable and warm. The TV equivalent of comfort food, not necessarily the most nutritious or challenging, but they're exactly what you need sometimes. The Office doesn't lose its power when you rewatch it because the power of the show was never about surprise, it was about familiarity and character dynamics. And then the last coin of this argument, really, you could say, is that some shows actually do improve with rewatching because they're so dense with information. Arrested Development is almost incomprehensible on first viewing because the jokes move so fast and build on each other so intricately. Community's later seasons are packed with references to earlier episodes that you can't possibly catch without multiple viewings. Even binge watching it, you're probably gonna forget a few. These shows are designed more like puzzles with rewards hidden for viewers who pay close attention. But here's what I think the real issue is. I think we've forgotten how to just sit with our feelings after finishing something great. We've lost the ability to just let a story end and actually process what it means to us. Instead, we're immediately trying to recapture that feeling by starting over. But that's not how great art works. The power of great storytelling often comes from its finality, from the fact that it's over and it'll never happen again. I'm going to say this in full confidence, knowing I haven't read a book in many years, since high school. But for you, this is probably different for you, right? Think about the last time you read a really great book. Did you immediately flip back to page 1 and start reading the entire thing over again? I'm going to assume probably not. You probably sat with it for a while, thought about what it meant. Maybe you talked about it with friends, or if you have a book club, you let the experience settle and become part of your greater understanding of the world. But with TV shows, we've developed this weird relationship where we treat them like background music instead of meaningful art. With some of them, I will say, with some shows that have deeper thought, deeper meanings, and broader worlds, I do think we have a different relationship with, such as shows like Severance. But maybe the problem isn't that shows aren't meant to be rewatched. Maybe it's that we're not giving ourselves time to miss them. We're not allowing the natural cycle of experiencing something, processing it, and then potentially returning to it later with new perspective and life experience. Instead, we're trying to mainline nostalgia and wonder why it doesn't hit the same way. I do think there's something to be said for shows that are brave enough to be one-time experiences, shows that trust their audience to sit with difficult emotions, to process complex themes, to carry the story with them instead of immediately returning to it for comfort. These shows, 1, respect your intelligence, and 2, your emotional capacity in a way that infinitely rewatchable comfort food does not. I do also think that there's value in shows that are designed as ongoing companions, shows that you can return to like old friends, shows that offer new discoveries each time you visit them. The key is understanding what type of show you're dealing with and consuming it appropriately. Because maybe the real problem is that we've lost the distinction between different types of TV experiences. We treat every show like it should be The Office, infinitely rewatchable comfort food. But some shows are meant to be more like live theater or great novels. Powerful, single experiences that live in your memory rather than on your screen. So here's my challenge and something to take away from this video. The next time you finish a great show, do not immediately start it over again. Sit with it, think about what it meant to you, talk about it, let it become part of your internal landscape instead of just another thing on your screen. Let it become a memory, and if you do decide to rewatch it eventually, ask yourself why. Are you looking for comfort or discovery, or just trying to avoid dealing with the fact that it's over? Because sometimes the most powerful thing a story can do is end, and sometimes the best way to honor that is to let it. Thank you guys for watching. Bye-bye.